right, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Mocha's application team doing our DesignShop talk. I have a handful of questions that were sent in ahead of time on the little Google form. So I'm going to start with those. If you have questions while we're live, please, is volume on? Sorry. Please type them in on the chat. So don't send them to me privately. I don't tend to see those until much later. So just go ahead and type them in on the chat. I will try to waste time before getting off just to make sure someone's not frantically typing while I'm getting ready to get off, close down the chat. All right, so I'm going to start with the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and we will go from there. All right, so in digitizing a hat, there's a section of lettering that says starts here. The lettering is a Mocha font set to sit center out. Instead of at the last S and do starts, it's doing S and then here, and then it's going back and finishing it. So is there a way to split it up differently? Yeah, so here, let's look at different ways we can do this. Sherry, that one's loaded, but all right, I'll get there. Okay, starts here. Okay, so if this isn't an arc, but let's make it an arc since we said that. Too big for a hat, but that's okay. That's way too big for a hat. I want to at least be kind of close to something that would go on a hat. All right, good enough. All right, so we have some lettering. I can go into the properties and you can say center out, and you'll notice it's going to start there and it's going to end here. All right, so the green circle is where it starts. So if I hit the redraw, you'll see it does start, it does that S and then it goes out, just like what you're saying. Okay, so what can we do different? All right, so the green circle is where it starts. So if I move that there, oh, it's still gonna do it. Oh, all right. So does that do it? It doesn't. Huh. Normally, in the past, I've been able to change that. I guess I should have done that beforehand. So I guess your only real option is to let it decide where it's going. And it truly is sewing center out, which is ideal in this manner. So what I would do, all right, so since that didn't do it, this is what I do. I do copy paste. I would go grab that. I would delete here. And then I would move that, or actually change it to left justify, would have been the same difference, but there we go. There's that one. All right, then I copy that, paste it, come over here, delete starts, and move that one over here. There we go. All right, and then I would delete the one that's got all the text. I would change this one to sew from that way, and then this one to sew that way. So now it's going to go your entire letter, and then your entire letter. So that's what I would do there. Okay. So yeah, when you use the center one, it's going to choose the actual center and go out. So whether it splits a word or not, it's not going to care about that. It's going, here's the center. So we are doing truly center out, which is ideal for hats anyway. So probably a good practice as it is. Is there a way to control the opacity of vector images and not just the graphics? Not that I'm aware of. They're just there as whatever flat fill color there are. So the graphics I know you can do, but not vectors. So a question was typed in. How would you do some freestanding lace? So freestanding lace is one of those where you've got to kind of know what design you want. I'm looking for a design. All right, so you've got to kind of know what you want to do, and it's all got to be connected. So that's really through underlay. So a whole lot of running stitches connecting everything before you go back over it. Otherwise it just falls apart. So a lot of what goes into freestanding lace is a lot of testing. So let me see if I can find, sorry, I'm looking at stuff I've bought. Oh my gosh, why is this all sorted weird? Here we go. Let's see. I like this one. It's cute. Oh. There it is. These are cute. I just love them. It's confetti. So you sew these out on Vilene, and when you wash them out, you end up with tiny little confettis that are in the shape of hearts. They have ones as angels too, but if you look at these guys, each one of them is 0.7. So let's see. Let's grab the single one. All right. So again, whenever you're doing any of these freestanding lace designs, the key is going to be having running stitches, connecting everything, and then going back over it and making sure you have overlap. If you don't do that, you just sew something and it's not actually connected through running stitches around the design. When you wash it out, it falls apart. Okay, so if you look at, for instance, how this one's drawn, you see there's a whole lot of running stitches that run around connecting it all. Okay, and that really is the key. So finding the art that you want to do and then planning it out so that you are doing all of this first, right? So that it's all connected, it's overlapped. Now when the satin stitches come in, they're already tied to something that is connected. So it can't just go, oh, that part's by itself and now it just spreads apart and falls apart. Does that make sense, Sherry? So it really comes down to that, is running stitches first, then come back over with your satin stitches after that, and make sure everything overlaps. If it doesn't overlap, it comes apart. Okay, you can't just have stuff floating off in space. It just doesn't work. So that is really what you want to do. And you can see all of this. Even here, it does another running stitch to connect it all before it comes back over. One, for looks, but the more you do of those running stitches underneath, the more it's going to keep it together over the life of it. So you're connecting over this line that was sewn there. It's sewing over it a few times. So now this line is connected to that line. Does that make sense? So it's planning it out, getting some art drawn out that makes sense. Yeah, Christmas bell. So I could probably draw. Let's see. Wonder if I can quit. Seeing if I can find a really quick something I can trace, because you guys see my typical drawing is not ideal. All right, I don't see anything that is in a manner I can grab for you guys quick, so let's see if I can just draw one. So I don't, every time I do this live, it looks like a kindergartner drew it, and then I feel silly. Oh well, kindergarten drawings it is. All right, copy paste, mirror it, merge. Oops, they actually have to overlap if I want to merge them, huh? There you go. And then maybe delete these points in the middle. Yeah, so the general shape, right? So if I wanted to actually do a design on here, I probably would want to kind of think about, you know, what lines are going across, what type of patterns do I want in there, how am I going to run around this to keep it all together? And again, that's all part of figuring out, like, what is it going to look like? How is it going to all be connected? Those sorts of things. So here, just because I found it's on, like this sort of things. What is it going to look like when it's all said and done? Okay, so coming up with that artwork first is probably important, right? So are you going to have things between here, like a crosshatch or things like that? So you know what on earth you're going to be digitizing. This is not something you could digitize as freestanding lace, but those are the sorts of things to think about as you're creating your design, right? So how do you want it to look? And then from there, it's really working through it of running stitches across all of it. Start there, overlap everything, run all the way around the design, and then as you start putting on your little satin stitches, make sure they're all overlapping and continue adding those running stitches to reinforce it holding together. So that's kind of how I would start with it. Okay. I purchased a font, but I'm having difficulty doing it as an arc perspective envelope. Can you provide a way I can arc it? Normally I do it with DS files, but not with purchased fonts. Yeah, so purchased fonts, when we buy those, they tend to come in a way that is, I want to say annoying. Let me go find them. So fonts. Let's see. I'm looking for one I've already kind of done. I forget the names of the ones I've done. So let's see. Text. Custom. So Scarlet. Of course, now that I want to see it, I can't find it. There it is. All right. So when we buy fonts, they tend to come in like this, where I've got, in this case, 190 individual files. Each one is a letter in different sizes. So this particular seller sells it as large, medium, and small. And capital letters are one letter, like that's a small d. That's a small size capital D. So that's lowercase capital. So that's just their nomenclature. So when you're dealing with these sorts of things, if you want to arc it, what I mean by annoying is you got to do things like this, where you would bring in your letters, put them together, and then after you get, not that this is a word, but after you get them all together, then I can go through here and individually move them around. Is that ideal? Not really, right? So I can take this, rotate it, move it, and eventually I'll get a look, right? I'll get it, making it look like it's on an arch. I can use different tricks where if I draw a vector circle, you know, I'll have something to place it on to make sure it's consistent, right? So I can take this guy, and if I drew a circle, I could go, all right, I want it all touching that. So then, but then I'm relying on my eyeballs, right? So what looks correct to me as having it on that edge. Rotating it around and moving it until it makes sense. Okay, so I can do it that way. Do I like doing it that way? I don't know, not really, if I'm honest. It's just something to do. But what you can do instead is put those same fonts into, like, create them to be typable. So these are ones that I've started at various times creating them to be typable, right? So like Scarlet, that's the large version in DST. A, B, B, so I just type those in. And then up here, I can say, okay, make that an arc, and it moves them around. I can adjust the kerning and everything like I normally would, move it around, and it arches the font. So this is one of the, like that one I was just working on. So how do we create it to be typable? All right, so that was the large 2-inch one. So I'm going to keep adding to it since I keep using it as an example. So I assume I haven't done these letters down here. So this is how I would suggest doing it. So this is new to DesignShop, right? So this is new to DesignShop 12. So if I grab these and I pull them over and open them up. So I usually just grab a handful of them and try to do these all in a row to make life quick, right? So, no, I don't want that. There we go. All right, so select it, right click, save not custom shape, right click, save letter, come over here. If you hadn't, like I already had created it, but if you hadn't created it, you would go type in what, like say create a new font, give it the name you want. I personally try to keep the company that I bought it from, whatever naming convention they had. So if I ever have to go back to the original files, I can find them. And so this is the Scarlet DST font in size large, 2-inch. And what letter was this? A lowercase r. So I type in a lowercase r and say, okay, that one's now saved. Right click, save letter. Type, it's still that font, so I'm going to type a capital R. Okay. This one, save letter. You see it can go pretty, was that a lowercase t? Okay. Lowercase t, capital T, save letter, capital T, save letter, lowercase s, and right click, save letter, capital S. That font looks really goofy. That looks upside down to me for some reason. Anyway, so once you do those, I close the ones I had opened, go back to the folder, select the next ones. I'm only going to do a few just to show you. This is the process I go through, as I just keep them selected and keep walking down. So this is a capital U, save letter, type in the U, lowercase v, capital V, and then lowercase u. All right, so again, window, close all, and then you can open the next bunch. So what's fun about that is now that font has those new letters in it. So if I came over here, went down to custom, selected that right there, this is a warning that reminds you it's an expanded font, meaning it doesn't have wireframe information, right? So it's a font you bought, you want to use it close to the size you were given. So now what I did, R, S, T, U, and B, right? So now that's all typable. I can make it an arc, right? So that is how you would take your purchased fonts and turn them into typable things. Yeah, so when you add, there was a field saying spacing 10%. I always leave that alone. What you can do, yes, so that's going to be the kerning, what the default kerning is set to. You can change it and play with it. What I tend to do is, did the lowercase j get typed? Let me actually try that, because that's one that usually has to be modified. SJ, yeah, it did. Oh, it was already modified. Oh, all right. So notice how this one is below. Normally when you, the very first time, so I already did this for you guys once. When you save it, it ends up saving like this, with it up. Most of the letters that have descenders, you want it to be below the line. So what you would do is you would hold the control key down, grab that, and move it until it's where you want it. Once that letter is where you like the descender to be, and I usually check it by having it next to, I wouldn't have it next to a capital letter like this. I would have it next to a lowercase so that I could make sure the heights are pretty close to one another. So again, hold your control key down, move it around. Once you're happy with its placement, you go save letter, and it overwrites that letter so that every time you use it, that's where it places it, that length below the descender. So the descender is below the baseline. But yeah, that, Kyle, that's the kerning. All right. So yeah, this is a really neat way to be able to use fonts that are digitized for embroidery, but you buy them as non-native DesignShop files. So you get 10,000 little DST files. And while you can bring them in one at a time, that gets old pretty quick. Yeah, so Kyle's added, I create alphabets and pull in each letter and manually adjust all of it. Yeah, you can do it that way. This just tends to be really quick. So you basically, you'd spend one time saving, taking your font, saving all the letters in there, which it's actually pretty darn quick. You saw me do, 10 letters in just a minute. So it goes very quick. There you go. So it goes really quick, and then once it's done, now every time you go to, you want to use that font, you just select it, type, and move along. So, yeah, that's my favorite. All right, any questions on that? They gave the font they used, but it's a trademark, so I removed it and said purchased a font instead of the trademark name. All right. What other questions do we have? Those are all the questions that were sent in ahead of time. So if you have some, if you can type them in, that would be fantastic. We do these DesignShop talks on a weekly basis, right? So at least we try to keep up with that. See what questions you guys have. There is a form online that I do like to always remind people about. If you go to the design, here, let me show you how to find it. So if you don't want to look towards the end of these, if you go to the Melco service site, so melco-service.com, and like I said, while I'm talking here, if you have questions, type them in. I'm just doing this to point out some resources while waiting to see if anyone has questions. So this FAQ site has a whole lot of info, and then all your manuals and parts lists are here, right? So if you go to the FAQ, click on DesignShop. The very first thing with stars are these DesignShop talk things. Click there and you'll get a link right there to submit questions. The other neat thing is you can go through and see what prior talks were about, what was covered, those sorts of things. So if you're looking for a topic when we're not live, or you're going, ugh, I know it was covered, I don't remember when. Cool, you can do a Control F on your keyboard, type up here whatever it is you're looking for. Converting custom shapes from expanded to wireframe. All right, so if that's what you want, you can go check out that. Or notice that the word expanded is covered 31 times. Maybe that's not what you're looking for. So maybe it's that, right? So you can go through and look for different things to see if, it's already been covered, what video, and it has links to the video. So it's, pretty easy to find help when we're not around, right? So, and always go submit any questions. So type them in on that little form. It puts it in an Excel sheet, and I'll have it next time we come around. All right, so I don't see any more questions added. Anything else before I call it a day and see you next Thursday? I see thumbs up on Facebook. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to call it a day. So you guys have a fantastic weekend. I will be back next Thursday, and let us know what you want to learn, what questions you have, and we'll try to get those answered for you. All right. Talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.